Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. So hi everyone, I'm Dara, as Jeanette graciously introduced. I am a licensed therapist here in Florida, and I work with Compassion Behavioral Health. I am also in private practice, and I get to do incredible kinds of things with all of you. So thank you for having me. I do want to point out before I do dive in, just Jeanette, you telling us how you've taken a break from social media. I call that virtual distancing, and I consider that a form of self-care. So that's really awesome. And I kind of wanted to like put an asterisk there.
Virtual distancing, that's a great term. Great term.
Yeah, especially for a team like what you have with all of your employees here or coworkers here. You know, a lot of the stuff is done from a computer. And so sometimes at the end of the day, separating ourselves from the things that keep us connected is also, you know, something that can be healthy and beneficial for us long term. But we're here to discuss, you know, navigating difficult family dynamics during the holidays. As all of us know, a big holiday is just around the corner, Thanksgiving. And then to follow Thanksgiving, some of us have other types of holidays that we're going to be celebrating or maybe missing out on celebrating with our family and friends. And I definitely wanted to just talk about what these ways to navigate through difficult or stressful dynamics as they arrive. Some of us will be doing virtual get-togethers with our families through Zoom or FaceTime because we are practicing social distancing. And some of us are going to maybe take precaution and gather and actually be with our loved ones, because recognizing that, you know, as this pandemic does continue and numbers do rise, I know that this long tunnel that I know Jeanette and I have brought to many of these discussions, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's just a matter of how long we have to travel through it. And so recognizing, you know, some of us want to be able to have those connections because we've been deprived of it basically all year. And so if we are going to gather, you know, how do we talk with our loved ones? Maybe we have different views on politics or views on the pandemic or just regular things that you maybe argue about or struggle to communicate with on a regular basis without an election that just happened or a worldwide pandemic. And so I thought, you know, as talking with Jeanette, what a cool way to just kind of bring some information. And obviously at any point in time, if anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free to either unmute, just interrupt. I like that flow, or you can private message Jeanette, or you can write the message in the chat. I welcome all of those kinds of things. So let's start with, okay, we've made a plan. We are going to get together with our family, and whether it's through FaceTime, Zoom, or in person, but we're going to do it. And how do I avoid or work through my uncle who is thinking and having a totally different thought process than me, or dealing with a dynamic or a relationship that's been stressful or difficult for years. So my first tip is preparation is key. Like DJ Khaled, he says, major key, preparation is key. I think this is time to recognize the commitment you're making to being around your loved ones or family or friends, and recognizing the intention of the gathering or the intention of the connection. And when we recognize that we're getting together to either celebrate or just have that human interaction, that kind of intention and preparation can help um, foster a healthy or a pleasurable experience, better to say. So say we show up to the family's house, or your family's coming over, or you decide to gather in whatever form is comfortable for you. My first recommendation, after having a preparation of um, intention and having a goal as far as how you want to be in the family setting, the second part would be that when you are there and you're around these people whom you are choosing to engage with, take some time to observe. So, this whole dynamic, we know individually has had a lot to do, and a big impact on ourselves. Um, and so probably the same for our loved ones. And I think oftentimes we are humans are programmed to think from our own point of view and our own perspective. And having this ability to take a step back, maybe have some empathy and compassion for others, that kind of thought process can go a long way.
Dana, I want to interject if you don't mind. Can you hear me clearly, just to be sure?
Yeah, it's a little loud, but yes, I
Oh,
can hear you.
okay. I thought, okay, sorry about that. I'll see if I can fix that. But
That's
I
okay.
just want to make a suggestion that I find that number one, if you're going to make that decision to be present in a presumably socially distanced, safe environment, before you make the decision to do that, typically with mixed family gatherings, I really want to ask people to take into consideration the possibility of exposure. So consider your audience, because there may be some elderly people in the family that are in a high risk category that could potentially be exposed if you have small children that are in the same. It's very difficult to socially distance when you're with your family, because everybody thinks, we're family, we all have the same germs. People don't understand how this thing works. I mean, many people, as you know, are asymptomatic. So just be mindful of that. Number two, I think, in the past, I've learned a lot in the past year. It's been a very interesting and challenging year for me myself. And I think from a personal growth perspective, I've learned that I cannot control the behavior of others. I can't control what they're going to say, what they're going to do, but I can control how I react to it. And boy, is that a great tool to apply, because I can't tell you how many times that comes in handy on a day-to-day basis. And like Dara said, I think this year people are going to, you got to remember, this could be the first family social gathering that people have had in a very long time. So it's kind of been like we all been in sort of like prison. So we come out and, your filtering system may be slightly off. So I think it's really important that, at least for me, if I'm amongst people in a group setting, I would announce, hey, listen, this is my goal this is how I want to add value to this experience, and maybe make it about, about how, what am I really thankful for this year? Well, the fact that I'm with my family is a good start. And, I think if you set the tone in a really positive, sort of making people think, well, geez, I don't want to be the jerk that goes off, out of control, setting a positive tone very early in the discussion or the visit might be a good way. It would be good. It'd be interesting to get your feedback on that, Dara, because again, I'm not a licensed social worker. I'm just somebody that tries to exercise common sense and compassion. So how do you feel about that type of suggestion if you're going to be in a family gathering?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, I do want to reiterate, I am not a medical doctor. Yes, I'm a licensed therapist, but so, obviously, I follow science. So, I always want to, like you're saying, encourage precaution and being mindful. And if you are going to gather, yes, please do it safely. Maybe there are plenty of test, sites. I know, being a South Floridian, right? There are plenty of sites that are offering testing. Be mindful of the accuracy of the tests that you are taking when you're taking them. If you are uh, um, what is it? Quarantining, right? Sorry, I had a brain less, but so yes, being mindful of that. And so obviously taking into consideration, am I meeting with people who are vulnerable, and the impact it can have? Because we might feel healthy if you're young and you have no pre-existing health conditions, but maybe one person there. And I know a lot of the doctors are recommending. I'm getting a lot of articles in my emails, to not get together for the holidays. But I as I as well understand the urge to want to get together, especially after a year. And so just always doing so and being mindful of it. And like you said, Jeanette, being mindful of the impact it has had on everybody, right? And taking, so that's why I say, like, when you're preparing to go in and you have the intention that you want it to be a pleasurable experience, you want to be able to connect with your loved ones, being mindful that observing, recognizing, maybe maybe you have a cousin or an aunt who is there but is nervous the whole time, and maybe you don't want to go over and hug her, or maybe you want to wear your mask during your visit, and maybe sit far away when you're eating, those kinds of things. Just being an observer, there's always a benefit to that. Just taking a step back, observing your environment, seeing what's happening, and then making educated decisions based on that. Um, I always like to say this, and I think it's a very helpful thought process, that feelings are not facts. And so oftentimes, like you had mentioned, we tend to make our feelings, and they feel real and they are real to us, but they are not often fact and what's actually happening, and it doesn't make things true sometimes. So I may feel that masks are silly inside when I'm around certain people, but fact may be that there is fact that these things do help reduce risk of contracting something. So, I definitely want to just put that out there, and that safety is it should be always number one. And then, just being mindful and being an active listener is huge. Uh, People, like you said, right? You can't control what somebody else says, but we can control the way in which we respond. We also have this ability to take a step back and not take something personal either. So it kind of leads me perfectly into the topic of boundaries. Um, some of us maybe go to family and they want to know, well, why aren't you pregnant, or why aren't you married, or why aren't you having where's your partner, right? Or why are you uh, um, doing this with your children? And people may disagree with choices that you are actively making in your life, and recognizing, I don't have to explain myself, number one, or number two, it has nothing to do with me personally, and more of maybe they're coming from a place of love, or a place from their desires or their thoughts and feelings, and less about our own. And I know that's just one that typically comes up for a lot of people in homes. Maybe you're the mother or the grandmother, or older family member in the household, asking those questions and hearing this for the first time and thinking, wow, I never realized how these questions that I always viewed as harmless may impact how someone feels about the choices they're making in their lives. And so just taking a step back, being an observer, having boundaries, being mindful of this huge weird experiment we're all in, and that we all have different thoughts and feelings about what's been going on. So what happens if Aunt Mary is asking 1,010,000 questions and it's causing anxiety, and you're really not having the ability to answer the questions, or it's you find yourself getting angry or frustrated? Take a break. I always suggest, have a plan. Um, Go for a walk. Maybe if you have a pet in the house, ask to take the pet for a walk. Find a bathroom. I gotta go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom. I always recommend cold water on your face. If you're a lady and you have makeup on, definitely get fanning yourself, giving yourself some air, maybe getting something cold on the way to the bathroom, putting that on your neck, your chest, or your forehead. That will help reduce symptoms related to anxiety or anger. It just instantly sends like the chemicals in your body to recognize the sensation, and then it slows everything just a bit down. It will also give you an opportunity to just breathe and recollect your thoughts. Maybe reset the intention while you're there. Take a step back. And maybe it'll allow you an opportunity to say, hey, is this mine, or am I taking on somebody else's? And just I'm assuming everybody that's going to be with somebody, there is going to be a bathroom somewhere. So, or maybe an extra room, or a door to the outside. Find it. Go for a walk. Take a break, and give yourself a good 5-10 minutes. It's okay. And when you come back, you can hopefully re-engage in the way that you intended in the first place.
Dana, I just want to interject again. I also think it's important to recognize that what happens around the holidays is there's usually alcohol and celebration, and sometimes instead of going to the restroom or stepping outside with the pup, people say, I need a shot of tequila right about now. That can only make things worse. So be very, very careful, what outlet you choose. It's funny, but I've developed, again, this is a great opportunity for people to share what they do themselves to develop coping mechanisms. So I have been in challenging family scenarios before, and I am quite opinionated, and I do like to speak my mind, but I understand that in some situations, it's just not going to add value, right? So I always bring a small container of like a travel size of mouthwash with me. So when I think I'm going to go off the rails, I excuse myself and I go gargle. And that exercise and that activity, as long as I can taste that mouthwash in my mouth, I'm reminded, watch your mouth, woman. Be very careful because, so I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's very
No,
effective.
I love it. I
So
love it.
it's one way to, and look, you're probably snacking on stuff anyway at the holidays. So what's a little mouthwash in between, right? It's not going to kill you. So I just think that, like Dara said, planning and preparation is really important, because I think that these really are unprecedented times. And if you are planning a face-to-face gathering, it's more likely versus the Zoom scenario where you can just mute somebody or you can just leave the meeting. This is a little bit different because, when you're face to face with people, requires engagement and sort of a protocol. There are rules of engagement in every situation. And like Dara said, and I really like that, feelings are not fact. Another thing to remember is you can't pick your family. They're sort of there, you're sort of, this is what you got, right? This is what you have inherited. These are your family. So I always suggest you pick your friends very, very carefully, because your family is what you're stuck with. So you really do have to develop a plan to communicate with them in a way that is productive. And again, your relationships with each individual family member they're going to be quite different. So hopefully you'll have some family members in your presence that, those are the folks that you can talk with and sort of, or maybe have closer relationships with. And then there are others that will surface and make their grand entrance every Thanksgiving or Hanukkah. And, oh, there goes Uncle Joe again with his talk about, the election or about this. Somebody eventually will say something or do something that may cause you to say, well, where's the mouthwash? I need to go and rinse my mouth out before I get out of control. So just some things to think about, but the preparation is really important, especially this year. So I just wanted to add that.
I appreciate that. I absolutely love the mouthwash theory. I will probably recommend that for other people if they ask.
Feel free to use it.
It's great. It's amazing. I love that. It kind of brings to mind, like, how I do the tip skill. So temperature, right? Cold water. I think mouthwash brings that cold feeling to the mouth. So it's an inventive way to utilize that skill. I think it's great. And like kind of saying like, wash your mouth. I think it's awesome, Jeanette. So thank you for that. And I definitely also want to elaborate. I did at the bottom of my list in bold, I have avoid drugs and alcohol. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that just now, because I do think oftentimes, right, instead of taking the break or walking away or utilizing some sort of skill to reduce the stress, the easy thing is yeah, walk over to the bar or walk over to the whatever, the bottle, or take something and or smoke something, whatever it is, whatever the vice is. That tends to be the easy way out, and it's not necessarily the best choice. And there are many right situations where I'm sure we could all agree that the moment someone starts drinking, their personality changes or they start to say certain things. And what it does is it lowers the inhibition. And so if you're mindful and you're going into an event and you know how you want it to be, or how you would like to try and make it, and it's getting out of control and it's not going as planned and the night is horrible or the day is terrible, you might just want to get what I call, and excuse me, but it's the fuck it's. That's what a lot of people tend to call it. And then they say, well, I'm just going to drink, or I'm just going to use. And I'm going to highly encourage to avoid engaging in that. See what it feels like to not. Try it. Watch yourself get over it. I consider when we have a choice to experience something difficult emotionally, and we don't use drugs or alcohol to cope, I consider that almost like building muscle when you're going to the gym. When you go to the gym and you exercise, it feels painful. Or when you're starting your run, you're like, I don't want to run, or it's getting hard, or I want to stop. And you have those fatiguing moments where it's not feeling good. And then when you push through that moment, you probably at the end of the run, you never say, I've never heard anybody who even maybe chose to run or walk for 5 or 10 minutes. They've never said, man, I wish I never did that. Typically, I never hear that. People always say, oh, well, at least I did it. And there's a sense of accomplishment. And if you can work through an uncomfortable experience without using drugs or alcohol, at the end of it, I can almost guarantee, even if it feels really yucky and maybe it wasn't a pleasurable experience, there's going to be a part of your mind that's going to say, yeah, but you did it, and you did it without needing anything, and you get stronger. And the more times you make those types of choices, the better you become at it, and the more confident you become in yourself and your ability to work through uncomfortable experiences. So, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, Jeanette, because I think that is typically the easy way out. And so we definitely want to avoid those things, especially because maybe those are our coping skills that we've been leaning on in quarantine, and we're working on undoing some of those patterns or behaviors that we may have adapted over the last 7, 8, 9 months. So yeah, definitely something to be mindful of.
Here's another thought. This is a really great opportunity this year because look, once the vaccine comes out and people start feeling a little more comfortable, this is going to be very much like HIV. You learn to live with it. We develop protocols where people can live a long, healthy lifestyle with diseases that we were once terrified of, right? Cancer, for example, right? So things like that. I think it's really important to remember that this year we have an opportunity to scale back on how many people we can say, look, I'm really concerned. The cases are going up now. It's 10,000 or whatever it is in Florida this month or this day. I really would feel more comfortable if we just kept it to a minimum. I don't think you're going to get much pushback. So as far as arguing with people about who's going to bring what, who's going to come, who's going to sit where, you really have an opportunity to address all this stuff now. So take a long, hard look at that list and save yourself some grief and start crossing people off that list. And maybe you'll get it down to maybe 4 or 5 or 6 people. That's a controlled environment. That's, where you've selected and discussed with your family, look, here's who we feel comfortable having over. It'll be relaxing. The likelihood that we're exposing more people by having 6 versus 26, it's a big difference. I know a lot of us in South Florida, again, Hispanic families, very large families, tend to gather in large groups. So just really think about that as an opportunity to, maybe it is self-serving. You think, oh, here's my opportunity to leave these folks off the list, and let's just really look at who we really would like to, again, it's a calculated risk, right, that you're taking because we don't know. If we are asymptomatic, we could still be carriers, right? So you have to give that some thought, but I do think that it's more of an opportunity than it's seen as a negative. I think it's being very responsible to think about, and if you present it in that way and say, look, I'm thinking about you. I would love to see everybody, but I want to be responsible and this is what I think we should do this year. Let's revisit it next year, but this year we're only doing 4 people. That's it. We can Zoom everybody else and maybe do like have a toast at the end of our dinner and have everybody on Zoom. With the capability now, I think we can make that happen. So again, just something to think about when planning, because we still have a few days before we get those guest lists finalized.
Yes, I agree. And I definitely think, smaller is always better, right? So even if you want to gather with somebody, maybe the young people gather and they gather in a place and then they Zoom the other people. You can definitely limit or come up with creative ways to definitely safely get together. But that doesn't mean, and just even if we're doing FaceTime or these kinds of video conferencing, these family dynamics or these questions, everything we're even going over today are things that we can utilize on a regular basis when dealing with our family, not just in a gathering setting, recognizing, what's the intent on the conversation, being an active listener and observer, being mindful of even, and I didn't even touch on this, but even just being mindful of our body language. If I sat on this call and I was like this the whole time, people would think like, what's the matter with her? And I'm here and I'm talking, so being mindful of how we're presenting ourselves to our loved ones or the people that we're talking to, the tone of voice that we may be giving to others. They might think, oh, she's got an attitude, or he's frustrated because he's yelling. And that's another thing, recognizing like how we communicate to our family. I've been working in this industry, and let me tell you, I've worked with a lot of families, and there are a lot of different communication styles. Dealing with a family that is not American will look different than a family that maybe is traditional, an American family, or an Italian or a Hispanic. There are different types of dialogues or tones in which are used that are normal within that family dynamic, and just being mindful of what maybe your family dynamic communication style is. Maybe an outsider listening in would be like, wow, you guys yell a lot. Meanwhile, the family's on the inside, like, that's how we talk. So just being mindful of that kind of thing as well. Just how you're expressing yourself and maybe how your family's expressing themselves to you. Um, I think we did touch on it, but learning not to take things personally. And so, I definitely, as we do wind through the end of this topic and just kind of bringing it to a close, um, I have a theory of well and unwell. And the theory is that when we are well, like really well, when we're taking care of ourselves, when we're feeling good and we're having a place of clarity or calm or a place where we can be happy for ourselves or happy for others, we tend to engage in things that are well for ourselves and for other people. And those of us, those we all have maybe experienced moments of unwellness, and if we take a step back and we think, oh, when we're unwell, we tend to have maybe more negative thought process, or we tend to be less engaged or more irritable. And then those things tend to be portrayed as well onto others. And so, even if we or you, everybody on this call, are the person that is the well person, and you're engaging with somebody who maybe is unwell because of circumstances going on in life, you know, making it a point to recognize that it's not personal and that it's not yours, and having that compassion for somebody else may allow them to have a place to explore that, or have someone to talk to. Maybe we're the unwell person and we're recognizing, yeah, I've had really negative thoughts lately, or I've been really irritable or short with the people I love. Um, and we recognize that that's not maybe the intention, but what are some ways that I can be better? Maybe I'm not well yet, or I'm on my way, but I can get better and I can do better. And what does that look like? And that's where it kind of brings me to self care. And we opened today talking about the virtual distancing and setting, things for ourselves that help us just breathe a little lighter, have a little bit more clarity. Whether that's taking the PTO and, being, even if you're forced to, and having to go for a walk, or have a night somewhere else where you can, take a break from being on the computer all the time, or having to deal with certain responsibilities. Be kind to yourself. Take care of yourself, have some self compassion. If you've been a grumpy person in the last few months, okay. Like, okay. And forgive yourself for it. You're maybe you're going through something and it's warranted, and that's okay. And when we can recognize that and be forgiving of ourselves, then we can allow ourselves to heal and move forward. Being stuck in that, well, I've been a bad person or I've been really shitty. That's okay. Whatever it was is over. And what we do now, or we want to do, and how we do it moving forward, is where the magic is. And so, I always want to remind the people, who I'm talking to or I'm working with, the power of now. And there's a book about that, but it really is very true. Whatever we can do right now in our moment, um, that's where we're our best selves, where we can really say, right now I can do something to change myself right now, and whatever happened is over, and I don't know what tomorrow is, but right now I have control of it, and that's amazing. Remember why you're getting together with family, the intention of the purpose, of doing all of this, and having gratitude. um, it's very difficult. I often refer back to gratitude, but it's very difficult to be angry and upset when we're practicing gratitude and being grateful for our breath, for and quite literally the ability to breathe, because especially right now, many of us are recognizing that is a value, right? Because with COVID, it is quite literally hurting those, and taking away breath. And so being grateful that we're breathing, maybe being grateful that you all have your jobs today, being grateful to have a family or a person, in our lives whom we can be with during this time, even if it is through a teleconference, or having food on the table, your health, or the maybe if there's a part of us that is unhealthy, recognizing the parts that are, because if you're alive and you're breathing, there are parts of your body, even if there is illness, there are parts of your body that are working to get you better. And so, checking on the things and having some gratitude is a huge game changer. And it can really change a mood and a perspective on a moment, on an evening, on a week, on a month, and on a year. Yeah.
Dana, I have a question that was actually emailed. And this person is asking, and I'll speak to it first, and then I'd like to get your feedback. It's how do you not take things personally when you know someone is saying something that refers to you, but they are not speaking to you directly? What are some steps we can take to diffuse the frustrated feelings?
Mhm.
This is a great question because I think in a family scenario, it happens more often than not where people are having open discussions about someone in the room without necessarily mentioning that person, you know what I mean? And it is that to me is an opportunity for you to apply what I spoke to earlier. I know it's difficult. We've all been in this situation, but there's the fork in the road. So you have an opportunity that sits to the right. That opportunity is you disregard the comment. Okay, you disregard it, you don't respond to it, and you don't allow yourself to sort of exacerbate the situation that could really become inflamed. Because obviously, if an individual is going to create some tension knowingly in a situation, no matter what you say, there's not going to be a positive end result there. So the best thing you can do for yourself, because you know that that's probably a road to conflict, is either step away, go do the mouthwash thing that I suggested. Maybe take your small travel size bottle of mouthwash, go to the restroom, think about, I kind of saw this coming. And chances are, if you're asking that question, you're either prepared for that scenario or you foresee it, happening. Very likely that it could happen. So prepare yourself now. What if this happens? Sure, is it going to annoy you? Is it going to be irritating? Is it going to be upsetting? There may or may not be some truth to those statements, but what's the one thing that you can control? Well, which direction you go when you get to the fork in the road. So my advice to you is there are many steps that you can take. The first is you control how you react to it. That's really the only one that matters as far as I'm concerned, because if you go down the path where you respond, then that sets the ball in motion, because what's going to happen then, right? They're going to respond. You're going to, and then there's dialogue, and then there's conflict, and then you don't really determine the trajectory of that discussion as soon as you react to it emotionally. I think we've all learned the very, very hard way that if we react impulsively to something, it never produces a good result. And I'm not saying, I love the exercise analogy, because look, it's not easy, right? Getting my body in competition shape is not easy. It's a painful process. That's why not everybody does it. It's the same thing in these emotional exercises where you're faced with that kind of fork in the road. You can either be the better person and take that right turn and just, avoid it. And like Dara said, boy, is that empowering. Sometimes that takes more strength and power to walk away from, sort of being put in that situation, backed into a corner, right? It takes more strength and self-control. So that's my 2 cents on it, but I would like to get your feedback as well.
Yeah, thank you. Whoever wrote in the question, I love it. Thank you. I'm always asking Jeanette, is anybody reaching out with questions? So I love being able to answer questions. So thank you for presenting that. I love your take on it. I think, it sounds like, right, there's like a whole thing about communication styles, but clearly this person or these people are being passive aggressive where they're not able to address you, at least one-on-one or directly, because they're avoiding some sort of uncomfortable feeling with that. And so you can do right one of many ways, one of which is like Jeanette said, you can recognize that you are 100% only in control of how you respond. And so choosing not to respond is always a choice. It could be, if it's something that's ongoing, then it becomes maybe a pattern of avoidance. And so maybe it's something to look into addressing individually, maybe not around the table. So that's where I want to, you can take them aside, this person, where it's hopefully just you and them, and utilize, an I statement or addressing them in a way in which, recognizing that you're just there to speak for yourself. And it's not necessarily maybe the intent of an argument, but just to express yourself. And, I statements are like a classic therapeutic tool, recognizing that you always, you start with yourself. I don't, say, for example, Aunt Suzanne, I really don't like it when you are blatantly addressing me at the table without looking at me and talking to me, and then let alone in front of everybody where it makes me uncomfortable. And I'd really like it that if, and then you tell them what would be helpful, right? I really would like it if when you have a question for me, just come to me, talk to me, or some way in which you can address the problem without also placing blame, because people tend to be more reactive than take it in and be responsive. And maybe this person is just somebody who's going to always do this. Maybe Aunt Suzanne is always that aunt that's always side talking somebody. And so, like, Jeanette said, go take your mouthwash, or just take a bite of food, smile graciously, and keep it moving, because maybe it's not worth that kind of confrontation. And just recognize, you have a boundary, and you don't have to own that. You don't have to walk out the door of that family situation and take it with you. You're not shopping. So if you don't like it, put that back on the shelf, leave it where it is, wave at it, wink at it, and walk away. And if the comment is something that you choose, you want to take with you and you want to sit on it, then you can walk out with it. But if it's not worth it, leave it on the shelf.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction that you make, is that boundaries, everybody has them, but some people's boundaries are different than others. We all have a different threshold, and some of us, and look, this is a work in progress. I mean, I've worked very long and hard to be able to exercise a lot of self-control in situations where it's really worked to my benefit. But some people that I know, people in my life, they have a very short fuse. Their boundaries are very, very, they're not clearly defined. So, again, the burden really falls on us individually to determine, all right, here's my social scenario, right? When I'm sitting here alone with my dogs, I don't have to worry about boundaries, right? I don't. But when I'm in a social situation with other people and I'm not sure what their boundaries are, and then add to that, right, the heightened sense of the political and social climate, maybe a couple glasses of wine, feeling nostalgic and emotional. So there's a lot of different dynamics at play here. So I think that you have to stop worrying about everybody else's boundaries and just look at your own and say, all right, I gotta know, like, is my boundary and my threshold, am I in check here? Like, I know, we all know what our hot button issues are, right? So and somebody's inevitably going to push one of those buttons. What are you gonna do? What's the worst case scenario? So think about that going into any situation, whether it's a Zoom gathering, whether it's a Zoom happy hour, whether it's a live family gathering. What are the 3 or 4 hot button issues that could potentially come up at this family gathering? And then think about, all right, I know it. It's in the back of my mind. How am I going to handle it if it does come up, right? So you're not caught off guard, right? You can enjoy, have a glass of wine. You can relax, and you're prepared because you've already kind of thought this through. And I know it seems like, man, it's Thanksgiving. I don't want to have to worry about so much. Well, you know what? This is reality. I mean, this is what you're dealing with. People are very unpredictable. Situations are very, very unpredictable. And these are not normal times, people, right? These are very, very unusual times. So I think because of that, it really behooves each one of us to take that responsibility and say, you know what, I'm going to be a grown up person, put on my big girl pants, and just say, look, I'm just not going to push my buttons all you want, but here's what's going to happen. I'm going to turn the other way, and, I'm going to go and gargle, and I'm going to come out and have fresh breath and not worry about it. And that's kind of how I deal with it. So I think everybody has a responsibility, not just this year, but every year, and maybe particularly this year, because everybody's got sort of a heightened sense of, maybe sensitivity is the right word that I'm looking for. So just be mindful of that when you go in, that the boundaries that you have, not everybody has. So we're dealing with a lot of different, it's like a moving target, right? So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and I definitely don't, and I thank you for that, Jeanette, because I definitely also want to point out, you know, if you don't have to be afraid to also speak your mind, right? And it's okay. But being mindful too, is what you're saying falling on deaf ears? And is this content or what I'm saying? You can say it and then recognize whether it's being received or not, and that's like another opportunity for observation. Did this person hear me, or are they just talking back to say their point? And then it becomes more of a debate rather than a conversation. And so just being mindful of conversations versus debates. Are people actively listening and responding, and active listening, or are people just kind of you know I call it ping ponging? Well, you said this, well, this happened, well, what about this, and then this, right? Because that tends to happen over the dining room table more so than not, rather than someone saying something and then it being received and digested and then responded to. But definitely, there's no shame in speaking your mind, and being mindful of that, but also just being mindful of, is that person even going to listen or responsive when you are communicating? Um, and communication styles is like a whole other thing we could definitely dive into. I do want to just reiterate, preparation is key. The intention of the gathering of whatever kind, just being mindful that it is safe, that it is conscious, that we are being smart. We're all adults, smart adults. If you're in this career, you gotta have a good head on your shoulders. And so just be really be thoughtful with the choices that you're making. Be an observer, be an active listener, have boundaries, be proud of them. You don't recognizing that you don't owe anybody explanations. You can just be okay with your choices and your decisions. If you need to take a break, you can utilize Jeanette's skill, which is the mouthwash, or you can just go for a walk, take some breaths, utilize the ice skill, or cold water skill, because that will also help. Remember to have empathy and compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. Check in with gratitude, and try to, at your best, avoid drug and alcohol use. Definitely, if there's any questions at this time, I'm happy to answer anything that maybe have come up as Jeanette and I have bounced our thoughts, and talking points back and forth. Jeanette, thank you for everything, your feedback and your participation in these conversations. I believe, I know they help me, but I think it makes, this dynamic a bit more interesting for all of you who are participating in this today. I think it's a little bit easier to listen to two different talking points than maybe just me ranting on and on. So I do appreciate that always. And the stuff you always give to these conversations are really well received, and I appreciate them, and I think they're fabulous. So thank you.
I just want to add that, I recognize that, you know, in these situations, the underlying component is, we're supposed to be getting together with people that we love and people that we, to celebrate what we're thankful for, right? So I think that if you remember that going into whatever scenario is there for you, I think that if that really is the foundation of why you're present, then I think that there's nothing but value to be gained. I think it becomes problematic when people are don't have a really clearly defined foundation of gratitude to in really honoring what Thanksgiving is all about.
Mhm.
It was very funny. I'll use this as an example. I should have said something early on, but I went grocery shopping yesterday, and it's probably a very tedious and mindless task that all of us have to do, right? And I'm hauling in my groceries from Costco, and you don't get the bags, so you have your crates and your boxes, and you're unloading everything. I'm putting everything in my refrigerator, and I just happen to glance at my open refrigerator doors, and my fridge is full. It's packed. It's got everything I want in it. And I'm thinking, man, like I know it seems kind of silly, but like I felt like emotional. I thought, man, I'm really lucky that I don't even have to worry about this. I can go out to Costco, drop a couple $100, buy everything I want, and say, you know what, I'm going to get some ice cream for my dogs because they love ice cream. So I said, yeah, I'm just going to run and get a little pint of vanilla ice cream for them. So, I mean, what a great world we live in where we have, the ability to have the things that we want, and it may seem trivial and simple, but I don't know, something about that image of seeing the two, open refrigerator doors, and I was like, wow, my fridge is stocked.
Mhm.
I've got everything I need, and I don't know that that's the case for everyone. And sometimes people do have difficulty and they're living paycheck to paycheck and they're not budgeting and they have different circumstances. So, I think gratitude strikes you at moments like that where you're like, wow, like I'm just really grateful that I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to worry about health insurance because I have great health coverage through the bank, and I don't have to worry about the things where a lot of folks, may have challenges if you've got large families or because of COVID, maybe your employment has been impacted in some way. But I think those of us, at least certainly with Bank United, we haven't been impacted. We've been very lucky that we've been very busy, and that the biggest change is that we've had to adapt to an at-home work environment. But I don't know, something about that image of that full refrigerator was like, man, this is really good. Like I'm living my best life. I mean, if I want, I want, and my fridge is right there. Granted, it's all super healthy food, but I did sneak a little bit of the vanilla ice cream from the dogs, and they were not happy about it. But it's just a testament to what you said about, if you live your life truly grateful day to day, I think you notice things like that. I
Yeah.
think you notice your full refrigerator and say, whoa, like there's a moment for me, if you don't, then you might not notice that. So take a minute, because it really does matter. And that's really the underlying premise as to why we're getting together with people that, that we love, our family members. We have to tolerate them. Again, we inherit them. All right. We don't choose them. So
Yeah, and I think the way I view gratitude and just even having like hearing you in that moment, look, there are tons of shitty things or bad things that happen all the time. Maybe it's a bad day, a bad moment, a bad mood. And that's probably for most people, that's a lot of this year. Or maybe it's been a great year, but definitely, when you are in a moment of gratitude, it's not necessarily making everything better, and it doesn't make those bad things suddenly disappear. It's okay to be upset or to have frustrations and to explore what's been going on for you. But those little moments of gratitude are like little sighs of relief. And I think, even just looking at like your full fridge, or recognizing, certain aspects of your life that you are grateful for, what, even if it's just being able to have a job throughout this whole thing, where we know a lot of Americans are struggling with that, what a wonderful thing that you don't have to worry about today, and I think, having that grasp on that tends to bring people down just a bit, or allow us to have just a moment of gratitude, and just feeling blessed for just a second. And sometimes it makes the bad moments or the tough moments just a bit easier. It may
Yeah.
not make it go away, but just easier,
Yeah, agreed. And the takeaway, I'd like to end on that's a great segue into, I like to celebrate small wins, because in the grand scheme of things, life is really a series of resolving conflicts and dealing with challenges. Because the easy part and the good parts of life, that's the easy stuff, but that's not what we're faced with day to day. So I think that what we can do is look to the small wins, the full fridge, that hey, we dodged another major storm, right? We got some flooding, but no major damage. So again, I think we have to look to celebrate the small wins. And even as we go into the holidays with these family dynamics being out of our control, celebrate the win that, what, they push my buttons, and today I just kind of look in the spirit of being thankful and in the spirit of celebrating small wins. Here, 1 point for Jeanette for just kind of walking away from conflict, or, changing the subject or whatever. So I think that we all have control over celebrating the wins, and we can recognize, when, how many good things and how many things can we be grateful for today. And I always tell people, write it down. Write down the great things that happen to you each day. And at the end of your week on Friday, look at your calendar and see all the small wins that you can celebrate. I think we overlook that stuff because we place such a high emphasis on, oh my God, this is happening and this is happening and this. But what about all the millions of little things, right? That we fail to recognize or celebrate. And I think that you said, that you hit the nail on the head when you said it's all those small things that really collect in our psyche and give us the power to cope with the tough family dynamic right during the holidays. So I think that's a great way to really wrap up and get you guys thinking about, it is Monday, write a few things down you're grateful for. And at the end of the week, send them to me in your email and say, you know what, Jeanette? You're right. Look at all these things that I have to be grateful for. It's like 10 things, right? So, and they may be small things, but it's great that it'll make you feel really good that despite everything that's happening around you, you still have the ability to be mindful that, yeah, I'm going to celebrate this win and this win and this win. And so take that with you, and hopefully that will shape the direction of the rest of your week. So, yeah, so Dara, again, I really thank you, for
you.
sharing this discussion. I think having this open dialogue with different perspectives and different points of view is always really important. My employees know that, I'm fully invested in their well-being, and I take their happiness and health very, very seriously. And as I do my own, and that's why we have people like you adding tremendous value to these discussions. So again, I think the next topic is going to be a great opportunity for us to expand a little bit more on different things that are very relevant. So I just want to thank everybody for joining again today, and just keep in mind that the December 1st deadline for the wellness incentive is fast approaching. So if anybody has any questions at all or needs any guidance, please reach out to me and I'll walk you through that process. And Dara, you and I will, of course, circle back and talk about how we're going to structure our next discussion, and then moving forward into the new year, some of the exciting stuff that we can be working on for everybody. So
I love it. Yeah.
thank you. And,
Yeah.
my dogs are wide awake now because they heard me say ice cream twice. So now I've got an
Go feed,
obligation.
Yes. So, yeah, your dogs will be so happy.
Their one vice. They deserve it, for everything that they give back to me. A little ice cream isn't going to hurt them. So, yeah.
It's
So
awesome.
everybody, I hope you do take my advice. Write something down that you're grateful for, even if it's one opportunity, one a day, and feel great about that at the end of the week. And then, if anybody has any questions or comments or wants to discuss offline, please reach out to me, and we can have a conversation offline about it. And again, words to live by, right? It's just a matter of how we react to what's happening around us. So hopefully everybody will have a very productive and happy day. It's sunny out, and that's one thing to celebrate. So
And also, if anybody wants to find me, I'm on Instagram. You can look me up at Connecting with Care. I can also send my email. You can also, if there is a loved one that is struggling with anything, you can also look up Compassion Behavioral Health. I'm also there. And if you want my email or phone number, I can definitely organize that with Jeanette, and she can forward you any information of mine so that I can be of help to you in any way as well. Just as well as Jeanette is somebody you can reach out to, so am I. So please feel free to. I invite you to. So, and just thanks for having me again, Jeanette. I always
appreciate
appreciate
it.
it, and I
Yeah.
love these. And
Thank
I
you.
hope you enjoy some ice cream with your pups.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks for joining.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.